I got it for Mother's Day from your hardware.
It was good.
Good. How are you?
Well, thank you.
You are live.
Hanging in the window.
It's true.
It was so big.
My wife longer than me.
Oil.
I feel like I need to
And
I
introduced myself.
did not
Fantastic.
And I would commend this, that this girl runs that. I said,
Those were.
yeah.
Sorry.
We just kind of find out as soon as I was shooting and then get ready to hear it. Well, because I wanted all of this to come together, but I'm already.
Are you ready? Okay, thank you. How you doing? I'm well, thanks.
Good afternoon. Will you stand for the pledge and a moment of silence, please? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kramer,
I'm here.
Commissioner O'Rourke,
Here.
Commissioner Rexroth,
Present.
Chairman Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Ross,
Present.
Commissioner Alguier,
Here.
Commissioner Hopper.
Present. I'm present.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment today? Any commissioner comments today? Thank you. The purpose of our meeting is we have one agenda item, and it's the review of the bid for the Government Center Lower Level Environmental Health Department space build out. And Deb, you were going to give us some update on that.
Well, I think everyone realizes this has been an ongoing conversation for quite some time. And what we have been, the board has given authorization to move forward with getting the bids for the project downstairs to determine what the next steps would be. And it's very timely that we have our representatives from FAH, Frederick Eccles here. So I know he's going to be prepared to answer any questions or anything in regards to the bids. So if you gentlemen would want to join us at the center table, that would probably be very timely to do that now. The biggest concern, I suppose, at this point is the fact that we only received one bid. And after talking to the representatives of the health department, they were concerned about that to the point that they did not want to move forward unless there were two bids that they could look at. So I think that kind of sets the stage for our conversation going forward, that we have an opportunity to probably look at rebidding this, maybe making some changes. Fred, maybe you can speak to the comment that Eric had yesterday when we spoke on the phone. We reviewed the bid from the standpoint, he asked if there were any options to perhaps make adjustments.
Before you do that,
Sure.
I think there was some I saw raised eyebrows about the health department. And Gwen and I were at the health board, and they did pass a motion to fund 50% of this project, but contingent upon less than 600 and more than one bid. So that was the motion of that.
Thank you.
Just for context.
And also we discussed reviewing the plans and getting some of the cost down. So making some changes in the actual plans, like cubes and set of walls, and just seeing where they could cut costs. So that was also good.
Doug?
And my understanding of the conversations today have been more based on getting an idea of the exact cost and deciding if we were going to do it.
Right.
To begin with, not we'll do it at this price. So I was a little, I could say a little surprised to see something that said reward in the agenda, because I would not been prepared to discuss an award yet, because that didn't seem like we were coming to that point, especially in light of a list down that's like of about 10 or $11 million of projects that don't have a clear funding source yet. So anyway, that's just, it sounds like it's a moot point right now, but.
Thank you.
Hi there. Could you repeat the question?
So Fred, it was basically just giving an update on, and maybe just even give a little bit of update, because you've been involved with this process longer than I have from the standpoint of being, new as of December. So maybe just a quick update in terms of what was the starting of the process, and then how we got to the tentative number about that 450 to 500,000 as a projection. And then, the decision then to at least go get bids. And then the discussion that Eric had about, maybe rethinking some of the project a little bit.
Yeah, we started working with you quite a while ago. And the scope of the work moved downstairs from one area to another. And finally, it was determined under Chet's leadership that we'd be in that kind of exercise area that we're in right now. And so the recipient was to be the health department, and the finish out, the level of the work was going to be the same as the rest of the building. And so that's why we found ourselves, for the most part, just duplicating what the soils group did. And that's where we are today. It's a pretty short story, but it took a lot of months just to get there. So the design didn't change that much. The initial design that the health department came in with, we pretty much stuck to. And so now we find ourselves with the reality of the cost, and the design will then change. The scope of the work can be reduced, or the scope of the finishes could. What we talked about yesterday was possibly going to cubicles or removing a bathroom, these type of niceties. I have a feeling the end result will be a hybrid where some offices have to take place due to the function of what's happening there, like talking to people, that kind of thing. And then there is space for cubicles. There's a conference room in it. But I did want to talk about just the time we live in, if that's okay, if that helps. Okay, so in 2015, the same contractor that bid this one did 1,800 square feet at $55.50 a square foot. So that's 8 years ago. These square feet costs are now $228. We're doing 2,711 square feet at $228 instead of 55.5. So that's crazy, but it's not the contractor. Same guy, same building, same finishes, and same process. So that's pretty shocking. I can jump right to what a solution would be if you want to hear it, or you can absorb that information. That's a lot.
So a question would be, what is the standard in today's cost for square footage? I mean, is that a typical?
Finish out? Yeah, it'd be 230. You're at 228. And that's why I was talking yesterday with you, and I said, this is in line. How it's broken out, the mechanical, the big number is architectural. So the architectural is really just the amount of square feet. It's 2,711 square feet, which is a lot. And so you can't compare it to much. It's finishing out. We're not building a house, for example, where we're putting a roof over anything. But these are not astronomical by today's standards.
Put it in comparison to commissioners, the soil conservation project, as was stated, is about 2/3 of the size. And in 2015, when the project was done, it's about $100,000. So now we're looking at a project that's about 1/3 more of the size, and now it's at $600,000.
So no, I want to jump to the next part. How could it be, what kind of cuts could be made?
Well, and it's very simple. It will take reducing the square footage. So right now we have 2,711 square feet. So if we reduce that, the square footage cost can be the same. We can reduce the finish out. I wouldn't recommend that. I would probably recommend,
What does that mean?
oh, you've got like baseboards made of carpet instead of just a rubber base. Just there's places you can cut costs. But I don't know why you would want to have one section just look odd compared to the rest of the building. So I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend, if it's possible, that we remove the bathroom. Some of the spaces become cubicles instead of walls. And then that we reduce the square footage. So there's a conference room in there. There's a large space for files and things that, so it's just a big space.
Can we reduce space and still get their functionality?
That's the question, yeah.
That's something to work on.
Commissioner Lautner?
Yes, thank you. Which brings me to, had a conversation with somebody who had been involved with when we had looked at the ugly room as a potential for the health department. And it came back, it's like, oh, we won't fit. So the next thing you know, we were looking at this space. But it was the same concept. We don't need all that extra stuff because it's already down there. We already have a lunchroom. They don't need a kitchen. We already have bathrooms, they don't need bathrooms, et cetera. So it's back to, will that fit within the ugly room? And I think they will. So down opposite end,
Storage.
across from the school of conservation, it has windows out just to the southeast. But,
We were there originally,
yes,
so we have looked at that
yes.
and.
So I think that we have a lot, there's a lot to consider. Like, I think Commissioner Rexroth said is if we even want to do this. The second thing would be where, et cetera. And I guess one of the biggest for me is, whether we want to obligate ourselves to this kind of a project when we don't have committed funding for some other obligations already. The other thing that, speaking with a builder, and he said, actually, if the health department were to try to get a piece of property, and he said even like brownfield, if there's property available on Merrick Road or wherever we had brownfield dollars, they said it could be cheaper to build new and have bigger space, like, or perhaps even get all the health department in it, if they went along the line of the barndominium style, rather than something brick and mortar, and it would serve their purpose to as a, I don't want to really say a compromise, because I think it would be great for them to have their own building and all be together and be in one spot. So that's another thing we should look at too. Is that a possibility?
I don't know if this is a redundant question. Has anyone consulted the health department about, I'm concerned about HIPAA violations with not having walls, and also like a lack of a bathroom, because I don't know if you take samples, that sort of thing, like typical, hospital scenarios. What's that?
Yeah.
It's environmental.
This is the environmental section.
So it wouldn't be the standard things you would think within the health department. This is more their environmental division, but I think deals with non-human situations. It's kind of more the environmental component, I believe.
Septic ordinance.
Septic, yeah.
Well,
Oh,
One of
okay,
those
okay,
things.
okay.
But per your point, the health department would stay at the Montessori building.
Yeah.
So they're split. And that was why I said, it wouldn't be better.
I would tell you that the health department space at the County of Ensfield's building has been reduced because of the school. And it's reduced again next year. So they really are out of space. And we did talk at the board meeting last week about the possibility of building. But if we build a $12 million project, it will be Leelanau County and Benzie County. The health department does not have their own source of funds. So it's our problem to solve somehow. Kama, and then when?
Yeah, I just remember part of our conversation in the past has been that bringing them to this building was part of a strategic move on our part to help aggregate our services to our residents. And I think that needs to be talked about with the same breath. I mean, I just know that we would work a lot better offering all those services and from the environmental division in our conservation district, well, building codes, and just, it would make it a very sensible place to do it. So, yeah, let's not forget that conversation.
Jim, you haven't spoken yet.
Is there, how can the county recover any cost for this, or is it we're just gonna throw money into it? Is it gonna be a lease rental program? I mean, you know, and are we setting a precedent? Other organizations are.
We set the precedent when we had soil conservation. And we've entertained the Secretary of State at one time. I mean, there is a business model that we share cost.
Okay.
And so we would get our money back over time. But it's over time.
That's what I would like to see.
Could
Is
you
how are
speak to
we,
that?
you know,
I can speak to the fact that there is a cost allocation that would be taken into consideration in the agreement. So, you know, obviously, in exchange for paying a portion of this project, there was an understanding that there would be a certain timeline, and that lease agreement hasn't been brought back to the board yet because we didn't know what the cost was going to be or anything else, or the project hadn't been formally approved yet. So, but that would be next step. There is a draft in place, or at least legal has started the work on just a conceptual. Again, that addresses things like what's the time frame of the agreement, what's the payback on that, what is their cost allocation based on the square footage. And some of that has to be taken into consideration because they're not using our furniture, they're not using any of our equipment or technology other than internet. And so some of those things have to be factored in true costs. But there would be a payback and it would be over time.
And they pay part of the heating, part of the.
That's part of that cost allocation.
So they're paying utilities.
still a good deal.
Doug and then Melinda.
I had my hand up.
I don't think we've heard from Doug yet.
But I'm before Melinda.
That's okay.
I had my hand.
That's okay.
Remember, I was gonna go before Doug.
That's okay.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, please.
I called. Doug,
Okay, all right, I know that partly, they're running out of space where they're at, that's what I understand is the driver of this. So I guess reducing space we're gonna put them in, are we gonna solve the problem? I mean, one thing I asked early on isn't only, I mean, obviously the county's growing. If they're out of space now, it would seem we'd wanna do something that allowed for future growth, or it would be very unwise on our part if we're putting them in a space that doesn't have a kind of room to get bigger as needs progress. So I guess, I mean, it sounds like right now, we're out of it, we're stopped right now anyway, because basically they said we're not moving forward unless we have two bids. So we're stopped right now, but it seems like we need to have a conversation between everyone before we, I mean, I don't want to direct you to go, let's go see what we can do, taking 20% out of the space and have them say, well, that's less space than I'm gonna have next year anyway. It seems like there's bigger conversations that we have here than what can be even done unilaterally here, because we're just guessing a lot of things right now. So that's just my thoughts.
I do want Commissioner Lautner to speak because she has to leave in about 4 minutes for her meeting, and then we'll have when you can speak.
Thank you. There's just a couple of things. We have never really sat down and strategically said, this is what we want to do. That's never been anything the board has done. This was kind of a brainchild of Will Lennox. Will was sitting on the health department and said, hey, we've got that space we're not using, we can do that. So that's how that happened. We took the one future build out space and moved soil conservation down there when they didn't have a home. And honestly, I think we may have overloaded our HVAC system about that time because it hasn't kept up since. So we added all that space that had been unused before. We put more people in there, and that brings me to the HVAC and the concerns that people have within this building. And that's not bring more people into this building until we get this HVAC system figured out. the fact that we have employees putting on winter coats one day and tank tops the next, and it's gotta be repaired. And I,
Thank you. Gwen?
Yeah, we have talked about this for about a year and a half, and we talked seriously about it. So it's not like we haven't been considering this for a very, very long time. Their need is great. As Commissioner Ross mentioned, it is a service to our citizens to be able to come here and do septic. Get their septic inspection information, like, applications, all that. Go to soil erosion, go to the building department. It's a service to our customers, to our citizens, and they are our customers. If there's less space needed, I'm not really sure why people keep saying use the ugly room. The space we're talking about, the first time I walked into that room, it is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful, totally undeveloped space with a few shredders, a ping pong table, some canoes, some bikes, just an incredible waste of space, of quality space. And we have an opportunity to finish our building and pay half of the cost and serve the citizens of our county. Now, if they need less space, that's very interesting. Maybe we can still leave a little exercise area there. That's something that I think we should take a serious look at. But we will benefit because our building will be pretty much completed then, and we won't have to pay the costs, nor will we have to pay the tribute for a brand new building that would cost us millions of dollars. We absolutely don't have to, we cannot afford that. As far as the HVAC, I hear everybody who talks about HVAC, and I believe our intention is to figure out a way with our treasurer's wish box and magic whatevers, that we're gonna figure out a way to do that as well. So I don't see it as an either or. We've been talking about this for a very long time. And we obviously can't make decisions today because we're gonna get a second bid, we're gonna cut costs, we're gonna take another look at the plan. But this is a way to serve our citizens and finish our building.
We
And
have,
half the cost.
we do have another meeting this afternoon, at which time we're going to look at all of our priorities, and this will be a part of that conversation as well. And it would be my recommendation as one commissioner that we make sure we're not overbuilding, and you help us make sure we get the right size, and then we get two more bids, and then we see what we're talking about. But we certainly can't make that decision until we know what we must have. Eric told me the other day that it was more than they wanted. And if the health department is saying more than they wanted, then we need to make sure that we downsize. And so my recommendation is that we agree to go get different ideas on design, specs, and then we go out and try to get and do whatever it takes to get at least two bids.
Yeah, so one more.
Well, what we need is.
We'll have to rebid.
It'll be rebid.
It has to be a sealed bid.
We'll have to be rebid with the new specifications for everything.
This-
This-
Go ahead, Jean.
Yeah, to add to what Ty was saying and listening to everyone, it sounds like we don't have the entirety of the situation in front of us yet. And I think I would like to look at like what financially does an entire building look like for them under one roof? What would that look like? I mean, I would love to have them here as well, but is that going to better service their needs moving forward and as they grow? I think we have a lot of gaps in our knowledge base right now to go ahead and make a decision on it.
Yeah, to rebid it, even if you had a 15% bid, it'd be $100,000. a lot of bids come in, from my experience, and I'll avoid 10-15%, sometimes more, or less. So does soil conservation, do they contribute anything to the building downstairs?
You want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
No, they did not, and that was the reason, if you can recall, that we were renting from the building that used to be the Thunderbird area. It's now Northern Attitudes and the Cupcake Place. So we used to have MSU, Senior Services, and the conservation all in those office spaces in Lake Leelanau. So we would pay their rent and their utilities. So for the 109, they came here. And we no longer paid rent and utilities. They were basically absorbed within the county building.
So Jen, they're not part of the cost allocation.
They're part of the cost allocation plan, but you don't have a lease agreement with them. What you have is a county entity in your building. So I'm not sure, again, I'm not part of the discussions, but we wouldn't have a lease agreement with the health department. What would happen is you allocate a certain percentage of their budget now to the health department. So if they request 300,000 and the cost allocation comes up at 30,000 for building and grounds, you would deduct that 30 from their 300 to balance their budget. It's not an addition to. The difference with soil conservation is you are funding through their bids or through their work orders, you are funding their conservation office. Does that make sense? So you have quarterly bills that soil conservation asks or gives you that you then fund their department, which is a little different than the health department because you have two entities cost sharing.
Yes.
Just one final question. So it'd be interesting to know, right, I mean, obviously that's happening right now. These guys are paying rent where they're at, right, to the building they're in. Be interesting to know what the cost of rent and utilities were in making this decision as well.
We heard that. We have that information. Jody shared this last week, so I'll get that.
Okay, that's right.
Right now, it's a table, we gotta get more bids.
Yeah.
More specs, nothing we can do, we're just spinning our tires till we first agree we're gonna do it, and then we're gonna get the bids. Or do we get the bids and then agree we're gonna do it?
Yes, before we make a decision, we need to know what it's gonna cost. But we do know that we have a partner paying for the cost. And the board is officially, the Board of Health officially agreed to spend up to $300,000. So can you work with them and?
Absolutely. I think the next step is for us then to work with the health department, confirm what they need, have the architects come up with a redesign, and we'll come back and then submit the bids based on that.
Minimum 3 bids, not 2, because it's kind of questionable to a lot of people, and we gotta do it right.
We utilize, and maybe you can speak to this too, what the process is that we use. I mean, we use every bidding source, every system that's out there. It's a standard process. All of the architectural or all of the construction companies, they all know the process. So, it's a pretty robust process that we use.
Correct.
So we can't guarantee 3 bids, but what we can do is put it out there and see what kind of response we get.
If you're setting it up, sorry, but if you're setting it up for bids in respect to the people that are spending their time bidding it and you will not accept a single bid, you should make that part of your bid documents so that they're aware of it going into it. It's just sitting on the other side of the fence and having to do that. So I would make that part of your specifications.
Give me a broad overview of what, like, an individual location would look like for the health department. I mean, we don't think we have to get into, the nitty gritty, but just, I'm being interested to see what that would look like.
I didn't hear what you said.
The idea of having like the one location building that Melinda mentioned, I feel like at least looking at that and comparing, because I do think planning for the future and the growth of Leelanau County should be taken into account, especially if we're going to invest,
I'd just like to share with that, Leland Township has been looking for buildings for the last 2 years, and it's been very difficult. So, the health department would be probably looking about the same area. we did put in, they did put in a bid for a building in Leelanau, but we don't. But I think, you know, that would delay them getting their solution, trying to look for another place. So I strongly agree that this is a good plan going forward. We just have to make it work for all of us. So I don't know if I'd worry about trying to find a vacant land or a place to build. Just, Leland Township is really struggling.
Jody did report to us that she had been looking for a building. And she found one building, and I think it was near Cherry Bend and 22 there. And the rent would have been twice what they were paying at County Bisfield. It's a challenge.
Just one quick one last, along that line, I mean, I don't know, within our own county services that exist here already, has there been a long-term study looked at what those space needs are, and are we gonna put the health department in our basement and then decide 5 years from now, we need to expand some of our existing services here, and we don't have space for that within our own building? So I don't know if that's been looked at, but I think it's a consideration that needs to be taken into account too. So, I mean, everybody's growing and needs bigger spots. I assume that applies to our existing services as well.
Facility master plans, priority.
Right.
And I kind of consider this part of our services. This is serving our people.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you for your patience with us.
You're welcome.
Do you need any official action today? We need to have a motion not to approve, not to take action, or lack of action? I think it's lack of action.
I think it speaks for itself. Chairman. Yeah.
This said discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
So we have public comment. Is our new reporter want to make public comment? Introduce yourself officially.
Sure, I'll make a public comment. My name is Zachary Miranda. I'm the new reporter with Leelanau Enterprise. Eric, my predecessor, is going to be retiring in about a month, end of May here. And yeah, I'm going to be covering your meetings for the foreseeable.
Welcome to Leelanau.
Yes.
Yeah, I've received a very warm welcome from everybody so far.
And he was at our groundbreaking this morning. That was your first coverage of a county event.
I suppose so. It was the first county event where, you know, we had board members present at least.
Thank you. Any commissioner comments? We are adjourned.
See you at 2.
We will meet again at 2 o'clock. I would suggest that if you have time, you read through or look through Deb's summary of services document, because I think you're going to be focusing on the priorities in there for how we decide how to spend our money.
Capital improvement.
What's that? No, part of the pack.
And Trudy's going to be back for
Is
that.
it different than what we had before? Do you have a new one?
It is not special than what you had before, although Trudy will have some information about the screening to go through, kind of some updates.
Okay.